So therefore, we see as Muslims, our job, especially during tough times like this, we see oppression, bombardment, what is happening in Gaza is now reminding us what is happening in Lebanon. In 24 hours, 500 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 24 hours. When we have days against, 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 in those days that we have, in those days that we have, in those days that we have, in those days. We want to know what our parents did. Rebel and have disbelief because of this child. He's a problem child. So you see that, what would you do to that child? He would limit him. You want to do tarbiyat, so you give him less. Now, same child. You give them, they're growing up, you give them many different tools, many different things they can use for the education, technology, whatever. And they're always using this technology in the right way. SubhanAllah, every time you see them, for example, on the laptop, they're using new apps to learn Arabic, to learn this. What would you do? You'd get them more. They're using, for example, the phone. He's using it in the right way. He made so many people, for example, Muslim. He's working for Islam. What would you do? Give more. Here's more. The new, for example, phone came out. The new laptop came out. You need the best technology because he's using it wisely. He's using it for Allah. So in the same way, when it comes to tarbiyat, ourselves, many times we are given gifts by Allah, but those gifts and blessings do not cause us to get close to Him. We were supposed to thank Him, say, Allah, thank you. I'm going to worship you even more. You made my life so easy. Now I don't have to worry about the bills anymore. Now I'm just going to worship you, study more, read Quran more. I have more time. I'm going to use it wisely. Allah will increase you in, for example, barakah. But if, God forbid, you don't use those, you misuse them, then it makes sense for Allah says, oh, well, He didn't approach me through blessings. Maybe He will approach me when bala happens. And now I make His life a little difficult. Why? Not that He's, God forbid, a mean Allah, because the most important overruling concept is hidayah and guidance. If he's not going to be guided by these things I'm going to, well, first let me stop giving it to him. Or maybe I will test him also with calamity, with tribulation, with poverty, with fear. And then he'll say, the Quran mentions, Allah mukhlasina lahuddin. Then he'll cry, Allah, help me. Now I say, oh, now you're back. So you see, these are the ways that from what we believe, if you understand the concept of hidayah and guidance, you understand the way that Allah treats us. And that why are we in a lot of times waiting for only, for example, bad to happen for us to worship Allah. Right now that you had, alhamdulillah, the all-you-can-eat Yasin, potluck with different fruits from all over the world, we should thank Allah more, worship Him more. Now that our stomachs are full, but usually the natural action is, oh, I'm going to sleep early tonight, I feel too heavy, I don't feel like listening to the lecture as I'm looking at the faces, for example, right now. But if we did not give you dinner, for example, maybe you would listen to the lecture more. So we're trying to think of, what to do. Just kidding. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajab. A person by the name of Tha'laba is a very good example. He's used in Sunni and Shia sources, his story. Very good example of insan when he has istaghna, when he sees that he has enough and he is rich, for example, he has no need. that he reaches Tughyan, that he reaches rebellion. Tha'laba is a person who asked Rasulullah to make dua for him. Dua that he becomes very rich. Rasulullah refrained, some versions of this say he refrained from doing this, but he insisted, Rasulullah, make me rich. Make dua that I become very wealthy. So finally, Tha'laba, who was participating in the daily prayers of the Prophet, he was participating in Medina in Salatul Jum'ah. He becomes rich. First, Rasulullah says, I don't want to pray for him. Now, after insistence by him, he prays. He becomes so rich that now he has so much, maybe it was livestock, whatever, he has to leave the city. And now he cannot come for daily prayers. Now he cannot come for Friday prayers with who? Rasulullah. Rasulullah, would you trade anything in this world, honestly, right now, to be able to pray behind Rasulullah, to be able to hear his khutbah on Fridays? He was so rich, he had to attend. That's what happens when you become super wealthy. You also have lots of responsibilities. So therefore, now it comes, so the first thing he loses is being with the Prophet. He has to leave Medina. He's too rich now. Now the second test that he has, they come to him and say the verses of zakat arrive. And in tradition, it's very interesting. Salat we have is one of the most important articles in our faith, in our practice. It is one of the last sayings of the prophets and imams, recommending salat, prescribing salat. But salat itself has a condition, and one of those conditions is zakat. For salat to be accepted, prayer to be accepted, we have to pay zakat. Now they come to him and they say, come and pay, give your zakat. He obviously has so much, he needs to pay. For example, every 40 sheep, for example, he needs to give one. He says, do I need to pay this? I'm not, for example, a non-Muslim. Non-Muslims at that time, jizya was for protection, and the non-Muslim would pay for protection and pay for jizya. They would pay this type of tax. So I'm a non-Muslim, I'm Muslim, why do I need to pay tax? So no, this is not jizya, this is zakat. You need to pay your zakat. He says, no, I'm not going to pay my zakat anymore. Same person from the wealth of the dua of Rasulullah. He asked to become rich, now he stops attending salat, he stops praying jama'at, and how I said, remember when you rebel, that rebellion in action causes rebellion in beliefs. Now in some versions of the story, say he becomes murtad and he becomes a disbeliever. That his wealth was spent in Masjid al-Dirar, that masjid of hypocrisy. His money was spent there. I gave you a tradition a few weeks ago about if you do not spend your way for the imam, you spend your way for taghut. Taghut actually, one of the words, it comes from rebellion. From the tradition we have, it means shaitan, because he rebelled. Shaitan rebelled. The tradition has, when you have a blessing, if you do not use this blessing in the way of imam, in the way of Allah, you will use it for taghut. He didn't use it in zakat, so then he spent it in Masjid Dirar. And then he ended up dying as an unbeliever in some of the versions. So therefore, we understand that especially when we have lots of gifts and blessings from Allah, we have to be very careful how we spend these. Sometimes some of the traditions and verses talk about money corrupting people. Inherently, money does not corrupt, but it brings about that potential in someone to cause that person, again, if he doesn't have capacity, it is so difficult of a test, they fail that test. A person comes and sits next to Rasulullah, he's very rich. I believe this tradition is in Al-Kafi, we'll be ending with this story. A person is very rich, he comes to Rasulullah, he's sitting next to him. It says, Rajulun Musir, he's rich. And he has his clothes, Naqiyya thawb, clean, good clothing, he's rich. And then a person comes and sits, Ja'a Rajulun, next to the Prophet, Mu'asirun Darinu thawb. A poor person now comes, whose clothes is, with dirty clothes. It wasn't clean. Maybe he couldn't afford it. This is all he had. So that person that is rich comes and he grabs his clothes. I mean, kind of, sits like this. He doesn't want to be next to that person with the dirty clothes, with that person that maybe, is not rich. And the Prophet says, أَخِفْتَ أَنْ يَمَسَّكَ مِنْ فَقْرِهِ شَيْءٍ. Are you afraid that, for example, something from his poverty will reach you? He said, no. أَخِفْتَ أَنْ يُصِيبَهُ مِنْ غِنَاكِ شَيْءٍ. Are you afraid that something from your richness will reach him? Why go like this? Are you afraid you're going to become poor now? Are you afraid he's going to become rich? And he feels terrible. He says that this is from the shaitan. Why did this happen to me? And he says to him that I will give you half of my wealth. He feels bad. He says, I will give you half of my wealth. And the poor person says, La. فَقَالَ لَهُ الرَّجُلُ. He says, why not? I'm going to give you half of my wealth. He says, أَخَافُ أَنْ يُدْخِلَنِي مَا دَخَلَكَ. I'm afraid of what happened to you will happen to me. You have a sickness which is bad. I'm poor, but you're sick. I'm afraid I'll become sick like you. That's why the dua of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is always, Allahumma ja'al qana'i fi nafsi. In dua Arafah, make my richness within me. I want to be rich within. That if you become rich and wealthy, but if you mistreat people, you become arrogant. And how Quran mentions if a person sees themselves as being needless or without any need, then he's going to rebel. So we have to, inshallah, increase our capacity, increase our dharfiyat. What is the remedy? What is the remedy to this? To rebellion. The opposite of this is taqwa. The remedy to this is having taqwa. If somebody has piety, if somebody controls themselves, that's what taqwa is, guards themselves, then they will have that ability to make the right decision. Then when it comes to money, they have taqwa, they have this internal force within, this internal faculty that helps them fight against sin. Then they will use that money appropriately. The tradition has that taqwa, you protect your taqwa, it will protect you. Protect your God-wariness, it will protect you. Imam Ali alayhi salam has many different examples of taqwa throughout Nahj al-Balagha. Like being a fortress, for example. Or being medicine, taqwa being a medicine for us. Or gives the example of those who do not have taqwa. It's as if those that are riding unruly horses. They're riding, have you ever seen a horse? Like a maverick, a horse that doesn't want to have someone ride it, will throw that person. Imagine a person is going through a dangerous area, a cliff, and that horse throws that rider off. What will happen? Be destroyed. We fall off the cliff. But it says a person who has taqwa is like having a really tamed horse. You see a tamed horse in those competitions, you want it to jump, it'll jump. You want it to stop, it'll stop. A person that has taqwa is like this person that's riding a really horse. Because inside of us, can be a monster inside of us. If you allow it, it wants to devour and do whatever it wants. It is how some of the traditions say, your worst enemy. It's a'da aduwik, your worst enemy. So when we have taqwa, we're controlling ourselves. We're balancing ourselves, our anger. You're balancing our passion, and you have this faculty called, or this malaka called taqwa. Now there's no way you're going to rebel. Now there's no way you're going to exceed the limits. And when it comes to that second part, we says in society, what can we do so that others do not oppress others? Shahid Mutahari says, same thing, taqwa. He says, he calls this spiritual freedom. Be spiritually free. Because the oppressor cannot control himself. He sees, he wants resources, he wants people, he wants those things. But if he is free from within, and every individual in society is free, has taqwa, and is free from hatred and desire and any type of negative trait that we have, he is free and is a human being that is free from these types of urges, then he'll never infringe on the rights of anyone else. Then they will be civilized, And they'll never oppress or surpass or break those rights or surpass the limits of anyone else. So to recap what we said, one of the terminologies that we learn in the Quran is Tughyan, which means to pass limits. And this can happen in three ways: in our beliefs, that we don't want to follow the correct, we know what the truth is, we don't want to follow it. It can happen when it comes to society and the treatment of others, that we want their resources, we want to oppress them, we want to harm them, we can't control ourselves. Third, it can happen to myself. And the remedy to all of this is taqwa, inshallah. May Allah make us of the muttaqeen, inshallah. May Allah help give protection to all of those that are in need of it, especially in Lebanon, in Gaza, throughout the entire world. May Allah give victory to those that are fighting against oppression. May Allah have mercy on the souls of our departed, cure all of those that are sick, grant you your hawa'ij, inshallah, of rahmah, especially on the recently departed soul. And inshallah, make us of the companions of the Imam of the age with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm going to open up for Q&A if we have any comments or questions.